So this announcement came out today. Intel tumbles after new CEO recommits to chip manufacturing. So if you didn't know, over the past few years, Intel's kind of dominance in the CPU manufacturing market has slowly been slipping away from it, with competition kind of heavily coming from AMD. Now, the new CEO that they've added is committed to pretty much trying to take that back. You can see here that they've literally thrown in the gauntlet. We're not just interested in closing gaps, we are interested in resuming that position as the unquestioned leader in process technology. Okay, that's some big statements there. Keeping production in-house may be bad for Intel because its manufacturing technology has fallen behind Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co., which makes chips for many of Intel's rivals. If the US company can't catch up, its product will become less competitive and it could lose sales and market share. Okay, so this is mostly to do with the technology that it offers. And processor technology typically follows Moore's law. And that is that as computers get more advanced, they double in speed and half in size. So that can offer a company a really big competitive advantage if their processors are half the size of another processor but offer twice the speed and twice the capabilities. And I think that's where Intel kind of fell behind. So here's a really big point, in fact. So their strategy has crumbled in recent years as Intel struggled to introduce new production techniques on time. It's now lagging behind TSMC and Samsung's Electronics Co., which makes chips for Intel's competitors, such as AMD, so Advanced Micro Devices, and big Intel customers including Amazon Inc. and Apple Inc. Well, Amazon are the largest cloud service provider by quite a bit, and Apple produces kind of the most, I think. No, it might not be true actually. Apple might not be the highest producer in mobile phones, but Apple might not be the largest phone manufacturer, but it does make quite a lot of personal computers. So being the provider for Apple would be really good. But Apple is just committed to doing its own in-house chips with like the M1 and the other things that I will need to look into a bit more. But for Intel, it's not really good news if they can't keep up to date and compete with AMD. But thankfully for Intel, it's not just a CPU manufacturing company, but it did get really complacent with its CPUs because I think it was on top for like 30 years. 30 years of being pretty much the big dog in CPU manufacturing, and then behind that was AMD. But Intel got quite lazy, I think they got quite greedy, and they just kind of let it slip away from them. So they moved into other industries like GPUs, so graphical processor units. In the GPU sector, it faces quite stiff competition from NVIDIA, which is like very popular. Now, GPU prices tend to go up, and it's been really expensive for GPUs lately because GPUs tend to get used a lot for mining cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. In Intel's data center business, revenue from cloud service providers fell 15% from a year earlier. Okay, that's not really good because cloud service providers are probably one of the largest, consumers of CPUs out there. But in its defense, it has reported 30% surge in laptop chip sales, even as average selling prices declined 15%. So it's not all bad news for them. But if they do want to become the main body in CPUs, they're going to need to essentially get their finger out and just, let's actually have a look. So one of the most important things when you're actually comparing the CPUs is for kind of personal computers, especially with Intel and graphics, Intel is really good for gaming computers. So it will always it might not always, but it currently dominates that market. But if we actually have a look here, this is another article I found, which I will link down below. In non-gaming performance battle of AMD versus Intel CPUs, the picture is a lot clearer. AMD chips take the outright win in terms of the ultimate performance in threaded productivity and content creation applications. And the Ryzen 5000 processors have expanded that lead. Okay, this doesn't really matter, but the whole point is that in non kind of gaming performance, AMD dominates. And when you're looking at cloud service providers who tend not to be used for gaming performance and just the power of the CPUs matter, then AMD seems like a very clear choice for a lot of cloud service providers. Because if you're looking at it in terms of cost versus performance, AMD, I believe, is cheaper. And if performance is better, then of course cloud service providers are going to go for the cheaper, better performing option, especially when they have to produce it at scale. Here you have Intel and its current price, so it's sitting about 62.46. It could tumble, it could drop, but yeah, Intel is still quite a good company. It's still classified as undervalued, but there is always that kind of thing that the new CEO is kind of biting off a bit more than he can chew, because AMD and Nvidia together are really good. Now, my actual personal computer is an AMD and Nvidia computer, but that for me was more a kind of choice of price. But when you actually look at it from the non-personal investment side of things, AMD can produce better chips for a lower cost in comparison to Intel, which makes it very attractive for companies, because if they can keep their costs down, especially on the CPU side, but get better CPUs, then of course they're going to do it. So yeah, in my opinion, like if Intel can come back, that's a really big if, and it's a really, really big statement by the new CEO to say that they could. But hell, they could put a lot more research into it, and they could pretty much advance a lot faster. Competition in these kind of things is always good, especially when it comes to CPU processes, because as I was saying about Moore's law, things get twice as fast but half the size. If Intel can kind of stay one step ahead of AMD in that sense, then yeah, it's very possible that they could compete. So the market's already opened for AMD, and it is sitting up about 4%. So you can tell how that news that the Intel CEO put out is going quite well for AMD. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, and if you are interested in AMD or Intel, then go have a look at both companies' finances. You can see them on Yahoo Finance, or you can actually go on their investor relations, and you will be able to see kind of how well they compete. Also, what I would actually recommend is you look at the competitor, not competitors, but the customers of AMD and Intel. Before you make any buying decision, actually look who they're supplying for. If you see companies like Google and Amazon, then just know that it's most likely to do with their cloud services. And cloud services are really profitable in the sense that they require quite a lot of CPUs and computers and infrastructure. So if they are a supplier for a major cloud service provider, then it's a pretty good option. But that is enough of that. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day, and I will see you later.